Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're talking about something absolutely crucial, building an investor's mindset. One that can handle, well, anything, especially when the world feels like it's going completely haywire.
I mean, you see headlines like this everywhere, right? They're literally designed to grab you, to stir up that little bit of fear, and make you feel like you have to do something right this second.
And then you hear about some geopolitical crisis, and boom, you see the impact almost immediately. All of a sudden, oil prices have spiked 15% overnight, and you can just feel that ripple effect starting to spread.
So all of this, it just leads to this feeling of overwhelming uncertainty, you know? The headlines are painting this picture of total doom and gloom for the economy, for the markets, and yeah, for our own money.
And that brings us to the most important question of all. In a world that feels this chaotic, what can you actually control? This, right here, is the one thing that separates someone who panics from an investor who stays resilient. So let's dive in and build a real framework for getting through these wild times.
All right, here's the plan. We'll kick things off by looking at all this uncertainty, then build a solid foundation from a real-life story. After that, we'll lay out a simple playbook, prove it works with data, and then, most importantly, talk about what it all means for you.
Okay, so to really get this mindset, we've got to start with a strong foundation. Let's look at a real-world story of someone who built incredible wealth from scratch. We're talking zero handouts.
Yeah, this is not one of those stories about privilege or some secret inheritance. The foundation here wasn't built on who you know, it was built on something way more powerful, something anyone can access, discipline and a totally different way of thinking about money.
And you can see that mindset in action right from the beginning. It was always earn, save, and invest. It was never about spending whatever you made. It was about making your money get to work for you. And look at this, starting this during the 2008 crash, a time when most people thought the sky was falling.
Okay, this quote right here, this is everything. Even when pulling in huge commissions, we're talking $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, the thinking wasn't, what can I buy? It was about the real value of that money. And this is the core mindset shift we're talking about. So many people spend first and then try to save whatever's left over. The wealthy mindset? It's the exact opposite. You save and invest first, and then you spend what's left. It's not about how much you make, it's about your habits.
And this number, $3.6 million, this shows you what happens when that discipline smacks right into an opportunity at just 19. This wasn't just a big payday, it was proof. Proof that the right mindset can completely crush inexperience and do what everyone else tells you is impossible.
Okay, so we have that foundation of discipline. How do we turn that into a strategy, a playbook that we can actually use in today's crazy world? Well, it's probably a lot simpler than you think.
It really just boils down to these 4 simple, repeatable rules. And you know why this playbook works? It's because it's proactive, not reactive. It's all about sticking to the plan, especially when every bone in your body is screaming at you to just run for the hills.
And this slide just perfectly lays out the 2 paths you can take. Over here, you've got the panic seller. Their moves are dictated by headlines and fear. They always end up selling low and trying to buy back in high. And then you have the long-term investor. They stick to the plan, they keep buying consistently, and they're thinking in decades, not days.
But you might be asking, does this simple buy and hold thing actually work? Well, you don't have to take my word for it. Let's look at the numbers, because history is, frankly, overwhelmingly clear on this.
First off, let's get one thing straight. The kind of volatility we feel right now, it's not weird or special. It is a completely normal, totally expected part of how markets work. Think of drops like this as the price you pay for long-term growth.
Now check out this data. The Carson Group looked at 40, that's 40, major geopolitical crises. And yeah, the market takes a little dip at first, but just 6 months later, it's typically up by an average of 5%. The big takeaway here is that the market prices in all that scary news super fast, and then it just moves on.
And it gets even better. History shows us that these times of major fear are often followed by the strongest comebacks. Get this, 1 year after the market bottoms out during a midterm election year, the average return is a whopping 31.7%. Incredible.
Which brings us to this legendary advice from Warren Buffett. It just perfectly sums up everything we've been looking at. It's about retraining your brain to see these scary moments not as disasters, but as what they really are for a long-term investor, an opportunity.
Okay, let's pull all of this together. We've talked about the mindset, the playbook, and we've seen the proof in the data. So what's the single biggest thing you should take away from all this? For you, right now.
Look, you can't control the Federal Reserve, you can't control oil prices, you definitely can't control geopolitics, but you can absolutely control your mindset, you can control your savings rate, and you can control your consistency. You can't control the storm, but you are the captain of your ship. And just remember, the biggest risk isn't being in the market when it's down, the biggest risk is being on the sidelines for that powerful recovery that, as history shows us, almost always follows.
So, in the end, it all comes down to this. Your financial future won't be decided by the next market crash. It's going to be decided by your next move. So, what's it going to be?